Chapter 19 of Angel Food Little Talks to Little Folks by Rev Gerald T. Brennan. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. A Night in the Woods. Billy and Joe Green lived with their father in the country. Billy was 7 years old. Joe was 9. Their mother had died and gone to heaven. Every day Billy and Joe went to school. They were pretty good boys, Billy and Joe. Yes, they were pretty good. When school was out they always went straight home, and there they waited for their father, who worked in a factory. The father loved the two little boys, and the boys loved their father. One afternoon Billy and Joe had just come home from school when Georgie Evans came along. Georgie wanted the two boys to go with them into the woods to hunt chestnuts. Billy and Joe loved chestnuts, but their father had told them time and time again that they should never go into the woods. Georgie teased and teased the boys to go, and he promised that they would be home long before their father came home from the factory. Well, the three boys started for the woods, but Billy especially didn't like the idea. Billy was afraid that they would be lost. Billy decided that he would make sure they didn't get lost. So here's what Billy did. Billy had a bag full of adjets that his aunt had given to him when he was sick. So Billy brought his bag of adjets along, and every so often Billy dropped an adjet on the ground. Billy told the other boys that if they did get lost in the woods, all they would have to do would be to follow the path of the adjets, and it would bring them back home again. Well, the boys got into the woods all right. They walked and walked, looking for chestnuts, and every so often Billy dropped one of his adjets. The boys kept on walking deeper and deeper into the woods, and Billy kept on dropping his adjets. After the boys had walked far into the woods, it started to rain. But right near by there stood an old shed. They ran to the shed and went inside. It rained and rained hard, and then it got dark. The lightning flashed and the thunder roared. The three boys were terribly afraid. Suppose that they had to stay there all night. What would their fathers say? Nobody knew where to look for them. Yes, they were scared. They were good and scared. When the boys couldn't be found, their fathers looked far and wide in all the rain. What a terrible night that was. The poor fathers were almost crazy, and so were the three little boys. The boys prayed and they cried, and they cried and they prayed. And it rained and rained and rained. And all through that terrible night the three little boys had to stay in the shed away out there in the woods. When morning came, the sun came out, and it didn't take the little boys long to get out of the shed. And boy, were they glad that Billy had brought his bag of adjets. They walked along the line of adjets, picking them up as they walked, and sure enough, the path of adjets brought them right out of the woods and brought them safely back home. Of course, the boys' fathers were glad to see them, but even more so, the boys were glad to see their fathers. Now, what was it that brought the boys home safely? It was Billy dropping his adjets as he went along, and those adjets brought the boys home safely to their fathers' homes. Boys and girls, this story gives me an idea. You know, we have a beautiful home called Heaven, where God our Father and Mary our Blessed Mother live. Of course, this old earth where we are now is an awfully long way from our home in heaven. That is why God tells us to watch out and not to get lost. God, our Father, wants us all to come to heaven someday when we die. You all want to go to heaven someday, don't you? Sure, but here is what is so terrible. Some people can never go home to heaven because when they were down here on earth, they forgot all about God and all about their home in heaven. They even forgot the way home, the way to heaven. Now they are lost forever. When God made you, boys and girls, He sent you down here from heaven. Your home is heaven. Wouldn't it be terrible if you became lost and could never go back to heaven again? Well, don't worry, you will never be lost if you remember how Billy dropped his path of adjets in the woods. Billy was not lost because he dropped his adjets, and you will never be lost either if you say your prayers every day of your life. When you die, you will find all your daily prayers, if you have said them, making a beautiful road straight up to God, straight up to your home in heaven. But if you have not said your daily prayers, why, then, when you die, there won't be any road to heaven. You won't be able to get back home. Just like the boys who were lost in the woods all night, you will be lost in the woods forever. Remember, boys and girls, no matter where you go, no matter what happens to you, always say your prayers every day. Nobody who says his prayers every day will ever lose his soul or lose heaven. Your prayers, if you have said them, will always bring you back to God. Your prayers will always lead you back home to heaven. End of chapter 19.